Let's move on as we're talking about guys who've passed. This is one of the most unique people I've ever crossed paths with. And I've crossed paths with some really good coaches, some really bad guys. This guy was eclectic. This guy was electric. Mike Leach, former coach, Washington State, put Texas Tech back on the football map, went to Mississippi State and resurrected that program. Mike Leach passed away of a massive heart attack. Unique, really different guy. Architect of the air raid offense. Air raid offense is 5 wides all the time. We're not going to run the ball. We don't care about playing defense. We're going to make you cover us coming off the line of scrimmage, and we're going to put up monster yards. And he did. He did it at Texas Tech. He reincorporated it himself at Washington State, and he was doing the exact same thing at Mississippi State when he passed away in his sleep on Sunday night. If I mention to you names, these are not all NFL guys, but of the top 10 career passes in a single season in college football, 6 of the quarterbacks on that top 10 list are his guys.
Wow.
Just amazing.
Wow.
Cliff Kingsbury, great college quarterback, threw the ball everywhere. Kid by the name of B.J. Simons out of Texas, threw the ball everywhere. Went to Washington State, uncovered a JUCO transfer by the name of Anthony Gordon, threw for almost 5,000 yards in his one season up at Pullman. Current NFL quarterback is part of that list. Trying to remember the name. Gardner Minshew. Just fabulous group of throwers. And he'd recruit these small wide receivers. And he'd have double slots and he'd have double wides. And by the way, he'd throw to a tight end and he'd have no backs. That's what made him great as an X and O's guy. Everybody loved what he ran. The most unique thing about him, you talk about intellect, strangest conference calls I've ever been on with anybody in sports. Pac-10, Pac-12 conference call with the coaches every Tuesday. They'd have every coach on, and it's supposed to be 15 minutes for each coach. You get to Mike Leach, and you talk about Washington State and what they were doing, and then he'd go off on a tangent. And his press conferences, even in Pullman, were just off the charts. He'd start talking about Frank Sinatra. He'd start talking about craft beer. He'd start talking about growing up in the cold and the snow of Wyoming. He would talk about the Indian reservations. He had written a book about the Cherokees. I mean, most unique intellectual guy that I've ever crossed paths with. Now, tough to do your job because he kept going off on tangents all the time. Fun guy. He'd spend his off season in Key West, Florida. You know who's famous, who spent a lot of time in Key West?
Jimmy Buffett?
Well, Jimmy Buffett, that's a good call. Jimmy Buffett is part of that mix.
Yeah.
But the great writer of the 1930s, 40s, and 50s.
Oh, yeah.
Ernest Hemingway.
Yeah.
He almost lived at a bar in uptown Key West. I've been in that bar. It's called Sloppy Joe's.
Nice.
Mike Leach, first chair at the bar in the off season. He'd be in that bar every day talking football, talking society, talking life, telling stories. Just hilarious. Cool guy. Miss him. I guess he lived life his own way. And he had his own set of rules, and he didn't care for university presidents and, the alums and the big cigars, like John Riley. They were important, but he didn't care what John Riley thought about what they did if they lost 59-57, and there were a bunch of those games. Just a really, really unique guy. Like I said, electric offense, eclectic personality.
Yeah, I love guys like that. In the world of sports, in the world of business, they just think differently and they know how to be innovative. They come up with new schemes that can sometimes transform a sport or an industry on its ear. So, this is a big loss in the world of football. I mean, you could say he's definitely one of the greatest innovators in college football.
Well, I was on one conference call with him, and somehow he asked me, old-time music. Do you ever listen to big band or old-time music, 50s, 60s, 70s?
Really?
He said, who's your favorite artist from that era? I said, well, Frank Sinatra. He went off on a tangent talking about Sinatra.
Nice.
He must have gone for 10 to 12 minutes, and I had to move him back and get him back on topic. But it just as unique a guy. And you know who's come off the Mike Leach family tree? Mike Riley. Lincoln
Riley.
At USC.
Yeah.
He's one of the proteges of the air raid offense. I mean, so many other great coaches that have come there. Obviously, Kingsbury and Graham Harrell, another really good college offensive coordinator. They're just all over the roadmap. So fun guy. If you're killing time, Google Mike Leach. And you won't believe the stories that are being written by a lot of great journalists around the country who had the same experience I did, crossing paths with him and talking about raising beagles versus German shepherds, and just cut from a different cloth. That's all I can say.
Yeah, right on. I mean, it's in kind of a unique way, having a personality like that as a head coach kind of just creates a certain amount of electricity around the program that can attract players, that kind of differentiates his program from a lot of others. But, what an intriguing and an innovative mind.
Yeah, defense always optional on a Mike Leach football team.